Hello everybody and welcome to Career Talk. Today's video is super special because we went through a plethora of questions that our members posted, and we filtered the 10 most difficult Scrum Master questions that they encountered in their interviews of all the time. So this is a special video. We'll do it in two parts. Part 1, we'll be dealing with 5 questions. Part 2, we'll be dealing with 5 other questions. So this is part 1. Before we get started, I have a quick request. If you like this video at the end and you find it useful, please hit like, because that signals to YouTube algorithm gods that this video was super useful. If you need more videos like this and you would like to stay in touch, hit the bell icon and subscribe to Career Talk. In case you have a friend or any acquaintance you know is looking for a job or has a problem that you find the solution to in this video, don't forget to share. At the end of this video, if you really like it and you think that it was worth it, please don't forget to hype. This is a new feature and that enables this video to reach to more agile practitioners, and who knows, this might really help them with their job or job search. So let's get started. Now, a brief about me. I am Devika Joshi. I'm a Scrum Master with 10 plus years of experience across project management and Scrum roles, Agile roles. I'm certified Safe 6 Scrum Master. I also have a CSM certification from Scrum Alliance and CSPO certification from Scrum Alliance again. I've worked with IT and non-IT environments, and I am based in Poland. You might have seen me in these Career Talk videos, and if you haven't and you see these thumbnails and you find them useful, the link is in the description. You can feel free and go through those videos. So enough about me, let's just get started. If you were asked to measure the quality of team's definition of done, which is currently a simple checklist, what 2 specific metrics would you introduce? Explain how would you use the trend of one of those metrics to advocate for adding an automated step to the definition of done. Disclaimer before I answer this question. There could be many root causes for a bad DoD, or to indicate that you need to make your DoD better. And not every time automation is the answer. However, if I go through each and every metric, diagnostic metric, it'll be a very long video, and maybe that is a video for later. Maybe you can always comment down in the comment section if you want that video. Sure, maybe that could be another video. For time's sake, we will stick to the specifics of this question, and we are assuming that automation rather the lack of it is a problem. So we'll be sticking to that, and we'll be using metrics to validate this. All right. So in this scenario, our current DoD is a simple checklist, but it's creating a risk, right? We need to move from checking the boxes to measuring quality assurance and cost efficiency. The simple DoD is failing. So we use 2 metrics in 2 ways which will help us, right? The first one is to track the reactive failure, and we are measuring it using defects escape rate, or DER. And the other thing we will be using is proactive cost, which is measured using the manual effort in DoD completion, or MEDC. Let's look at the formulas of those. So defect escape rate, or DER, is the number of defects you found post-sprint. After you are done, the story is signed off and passed in the QA, or even worse, it's already in production, right? So this is the formula for that, and then you will divide it by the total number of defects found. That is before production and after production, or before sign off, after sign off, whatever. So in totality, the number of defects you found overall, and you will multiply it by 100. Where will you source this data from? You will ask your QA managers, DevOps team, via incident management system, and you will get this data. And you would basically put this percentage and see it as a trend. If the DER trend is getting higher sprint by sprint, it means our existing quality gates or our DoD checklist are fault security. They're not comprehensive enough to stop bugs from escaping. We are essentially here charging our customers to find bugs, right? So that is one key indicator. The other, which I will use to identify root cause, is the manual effort in DoD completion, or MEDC here, because we are indicating towards automation, right? So how is it calculated? The manual hours we spend on DoD, the hours the team spends per user story executing manual repetitive steps like manual regression tests or manual deployment verifications, and we will divide it by the story points delivered. All right. The data sources for this metric will be our development team, their logs for manual regression, and QA team, their logs for manual regression, security checks, deployment tasks, etc. And now, if the MEDC is high or rising, it tells us that human labor is the bottleneck and the point of failure in our quality process. This manual labor is the primary reason why defects are slipping through. Next is to use this data to advocate a case, right? And how are we going to do that? When the DER trends upward, example, from 8% to 15%, we're going to present it to the leadership as a high-risk liability in your quality gates. And simultaneously, we're going to frame MEDC as wasted capacity, demonstrating that manual checks consume, say, X plus hours per sprint without preventing defects. So how will we say it? The winning narrative is that our defects escape rate has increased X% over 3 sprints, whilst we are spending, example, 20 hours monthly on manual checks. Automating regression testing will simultaneously reduce DER and free up about 15,000 pounds in annual capacity. Now, how did I figure out this 15,000? It's based on the annual rate of the team into the number of wasted hours, right? And this is essential for good feature development. So that's how we're going to present to the leadership and have a case for this. Let's move on to the next question. Your leadership wants to know the cost of delay for the items currently blocked in the backlog. Since this is often a subjective metric, what process-related metric can you present alongside the product owner's value assessment to give a more holistic view of system's inability to deliver, and why is this combination powerful? The metric I will use here is the cost of delay. In practice, you can measure cost of delay in 2 ways. One is using a relative value, a point system that you can get from your PO. This is the most common form in Agile, and it is often even used for prioritization, right? And other, if your system allows it and you can access it and you're allowed to, again, it depends on company to company, pod to pod, whatever, depends. So a very strong form could also be in terms of money, financial value. So if you have access, not everybody has, so in that case we use the value points, right? But financial value is the ideal form, and it is used for executive reporting and strategic investment decisions. Whenever I used to present, this used to be super helpful. So suit yourself, right? So the formula to calculate the cost of delay is the cost or financially or business value points. You get this from the product owner, multiplied by the blockage duration. Now this could be in hours, days, whatever, and that exposes true opportunity cost. Then what you do is that you source your data, as I said, from the PO, and the block duration you source from project management tools. You might have Jira, Azure DevOps, ClickUp, whatever you have, use that. And then The third thing that you will do here is when you have exact timestamps from project management tools tracking how much time is being wasted in blocked efforts, you use both these metrics to present to the leadership. So because when you are only presenting pure subjective value, the relative value, leadership sees as a hypothetical loss. They don't really connect to it. The impact isn't much. They don't realize the true value. So if it is financially put, that has more impact because you're literally showing them the money that is lost, right? But if you don't, even pairing it up with the cost of delay in terms of point also is more effective than just relative value or presenting them that. So when you pair it with objective time data, it becomes quantifiable penalty imposed by our systems architect or project dependency. So that is why it becomes very crucial. So you can present this to the leadership. Maybe in the immediate meetings, you can also use cost of delay figures to justify deprioritizing new work in favor of removing the cause of blockages. All right, so let's move on to the next question. The team consistently meets its sprint goal, but a review of your commitment reliability or predictability, that is the ratio of stories committed versus the story completed, shows an average of 75%. How do you use the retrospective and other relevant metric to address this without turning the retrospective into a blame session? Good question. Here, the key is not to assume anything, but make data-driven decisions and ask questions to uncover the real causes. That is very important. So normally, on a very surface level, you can go and say, hey, 75% predictability, the team is overcommitting, and that's the cause. But that's not always right, and that's not always necessary. It can be that there's also scope creep coming up too often. But so before assuming execution problems, you have to examine whether unstable inputs are sabotaging your commitments. So this is how I will go about it. I will use a metric called scope change index to examine the root cause first. Scope change index equals to unplanned points added divided by original committed points. Now, what are the data sources for these things? What will those be? You will use your project management tools. You'll track the tickets added after the sprint planning or removed before closure. You will take this and then you will at first present the neutral data in your retrospective. So you can go on and say that our commitment reliability was 75%. This means we finished 3 out of every 4 stories we put in. We need to understand where the missing 25% of capacity went. Now, next phase is addressing the problem. So if SCI is low, which is usually less than 5%, that means this is indeed an estimation problem, right? So you can go ahead and say, hi team, the SCI was almost 0. That's fantastic, because that means we did a great job protecting the sprint boundary. And you can commend them and say that no one from the outside broke our system or our sprint. They also did a good job in protecting their sprint. So you can give kudos to POs here also and developers also to protect the sprint. However, if no external work came in, we still missed, say, X% of committed work. We need to, that means better our internal estimation or capacity planning. So your core coaching question here will be that let's assume our estimates are perfect. What internal or hidden work consumed that X% capacity that we didn't budget for? If you notice here, I used powerful question here. I am not deliberately using words like why and doing any negative words like failure or something like that. I'm deliberately not using that, right? I am rather routing the questions to powerful ones, which are basically curious and non-blaming questions, which focuses more on what instead of why, right? And finding the real problem without upping the defenses of the team. So here's what I'll ask. And if SCI is high, that means the issue was indeed scope creep. So my question there will be, the coaching question that I will put there will be, how do we protect our sprint commitments, and what mechanisms can we put in place to ensure that unplanned work is visible, prioritized by the PO, and we can focus? So this is how I will approach this. Let's move on to the next question. During a release planning session, the product owner wants to predict a delivery date for a major feature. Describe how would you use a burn-up chart coupled with Monte Carlo simulation to provide a range of likely completion dates, and how would you articulate the risk associated with outer bounds to stakeholders? My answer here will be that when product owners demand single delivery dates, provide a probabilistic forecast instead, rather than a straightforward forecast. So here you will combine burn-up charts with Monte Carlo simulations and offer stakeholders transparent risk assessment for major features rather than exact dates. So how will you go about it? The first step is you will gather historical data. You would collect team's velocity over 8 to 12 sprints. Then second, you would run a Monte Carlo analysis. You'll basically simulate thousands of potential completion scenarios using historical velocity variability. Then you would present, third step, you would present the probability ranges. So instead of saying this date, that's date, you would present like, sprint wise or date wise, and you could say that, hey, there's a 50% chance we'll be done by this time, or there's 75% chance, or there's a 90% chance. In other words, confidence dates instead of single estimates. And fourth, you would also communicate risk boundaries. You would do all of this to do it correctly. And finally, let's move on to our last question. A team reports that 30% of their work each sprint is unplanned emergency work. What single metric or ratio would you calculate to clearly show the financial and opportunity cost of this unplanned work to management? And what organizational change would you recommend based on this data? All right, so if you want to quantify the cost of unplanned work, when 30% of the sprint capacity disappears into emergency work, in order to make leadership understand better, you would use lost revenue or missed opportunities to communicate to them. So use monthly opportunity costs. And this is that one metric that you will use based on the 30% you're given by the team to show to the leadership. So how do you calculate monthly opportunity cost? Total feature value per month into unplanned work ratio that is given to you by the team. So the data sources will be you tagging all the work as planned or unplanned via story points, obtain team's fully burdened cost from financial HR, or average feature value from product owner. And that is how you are able to calculate this. And then the last step you will do is you will recommend a capacity allocation, say 20% dedicated support buffer for handling interruptions without derailing sprint goals. So this is how you will go about it. And at the end of the day, as I said, organizationally, you'll recommend that any work exceeding the 20% support buffer must trigger management-led root cause analysis to compel upstream stability investments. And that is how you will go about this. That's it from our side. These were the 5 questions out of 10, the most difficult questions Scrum Masters have ever faced in job interviews. I hope you find it useful. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And if you found it really useful, you can even hype this video. Until the next time, thank you so much.